Welcome back. Today isn't just Father's Day. It's Juneteenth, the day that marks the end of slavery in the United States. Juneteenth became an official holiday in the state of Connecticut when Governor Lamont signed a bill into law last Friday. It was made a federal holiday last year at this time when President Biden signed similar legislation. Joining me to talk about the importance of the day to African Americans and all Americans, our state representative, Corey Paris. He advocated and voted for the state holiday. Also with us is Dr. Walton Brown Foster. She's a professor of political science at Central Connecticut State University and also program coordinator for African Studies there. I want to start with you, Representative Paris. You spoke passionately on the floor in Hartford talking about this. Obviously, we now, many of us tomorrow will have the day off as we celebrate it, today being Sunday. What does it mean in the state of Connecticut this happened? And tell us a little bit about why you argued so strongly in favor of it.
Well, I'm so happy to be here with you all. And let me say, this is an amazing opportunity. We are one of 3 states in the country that recognize Juneteenth as a statewide holiday. I think it's been said about this holiday and just the entire notion of Juneteenth, and certainly something that I feel about its passage here in the state of Connecticut, is that it's an opportunity to both look back, but to also look ahead to make sure that the notion of freedom and the fragility of it is always protected and celebrated. And so for us, I feel like we've won a victory for the next generation of those who are committed to a more just and inclusive and equitable future, regardless of their race, so long as they understand the value of Juneteenth not just being something that is so important to African Americans in this country, but it being a major part of American history.
I want to turn to Dr. Walton Brown Foster now and ask you a little bit about that importance in American history. I know we're going back to 1865 in Galveston. Tell us how this came about, and now we've seen the national recognition and the state recognition all in the time period of about a year. So tell us about this day and its meaning.
Thank you, Eric. I want to begin by kind of clarifying that I am a part of the African American Studies program at Central. And this particular order occurred 2 years after the executive order of Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation. And it is important on many, many levels. The first level, of course, has to do with the progression of civil rights and racial equality in the United States. It's secondly important because it instructs us on the nature of our political system. The order, Lincoln's first order in 1863 was, of course, an executive action, but the war was going on, and the outskirts or margins of the war were occurring in Texas, and the order was not applied or enforced because there were no Union troops. So in 1865, when 2,000 Union troops appeared in Galveston, many of those troops being African American troops, many traced to New England, perhaps even Connecticut, the order was then enforced in the form of this military order coming from General Gordon Granger. And it had 2 interesting parts. The first part announced the freedom of the existing chattel population, African Americans enslaved in Texas. And secondly, the order included this peculiar requirement that they remain quietly in place and work for their former masters, but as paid labor. And many find that to be an interesting contradiction.
Sure, absolutely. I want to ask you just one clarification on that, though. So that's the 1865. Here we are in 2021 and 22 as you look at the feds in the state. Why now? Talk to us just about what's changed that allowed this day that has always been important to African Americans now to be celebrated by all Americans.
Well, it came and went. The emancipation, the second emancipation celebrations continued amongst African Americans as many dispersed from Texas, it was carried with them, and it slowly became a national holiday celebrated quietly amongst African Americans. Then, of course, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, slowly but surely, the commemorations died down. And only recently have we seen a reemergence of a national, broadly shared commemoration of the ending of slavery through proclamation. I must clarify that slavery was not officially ended until December of 1865 with the 13th Amendment. But I think that this resurgence in the commemoration of Juneteenth is really emblematic of one of the true advancements that we have made since 1865. And as we see more and more states and more interest in the full history of the United States by the inclusion of African American history, I think that it's become more meaningful to all Americans. It's not simply a holiday for African Americans, it's a holiday for all Americans as we become a more perfect union.
Well, and Representative Paris, I want to turn to you now, because when one of the things that was said in Hartford, I saw a great quote. It said it was an off-the-books holiday for many African Americans. Now it's an on-the-books holiday, both for the U.S. and for the state. So what do you want people to know? It's tomorrow's the day, like many of these holidays, you know, Veterans Day, Memorial Day. It's so easy to say, great, we have a day off without thinking about the reason. We have about 30 seconds left. Just tell us, what do you want people to think about as they're celebrating for the first time in Connecticut Juneteenth?
You know, Eric, I think the thing that I can say to many people out there is the same thing that has been shared with me from generation to generation as to why this holiday is so important. I think about my great-great-grandfather, whose father and mother were both slaves born in Kentucky and sold into slavery in the state of Missouri. And they had their children in Missouri. And then they crossed over the Missouri River and were given land that is still today in our family. That's our family farm that my great-grandmother was born on. And they were one of the first Black families that helped build the township of Quindaro, Kansas. And they also helped many other slaves escape into freedom. And so for me, I feel like this is an opportunity to recognize from whence we've come, and also the progress and the promise of where we're going to go as one people together. So this is a day that I think serves as a reminder for those who have come before us to pay a great price, and a reminder that we as a new generation of young people and as Americans have to come together to really continue on the course for freedom and democracy.
All right, State Representative Corey Paris from the 145th District down in Stamford, Dr. Walton Brown Foster from CCSU. We appreciate you both being with us, and we will hopefully see you again here on CT22 in the future.